Well, I gather we have 20 minutes for questions. Is that right, Mark? Or anyway, let's start some questions. If people have questions, come up to the microphone. And meanwhile, I'll ask one. Iran has threatened nuclear destruction of Israel. What should Israel's response be to this threat, and what should our response be?
I think that one of the things we first of all have to do before you can answer that question is ask the question, is their threat legitimate and real? Do they have the capability of what they are threatening? And if they do, will they do it? Now, the answer to that right now is I don't think they have that capability now, but I don't think that they would hesitate to do it if they had that capability unless they understand what the consequences are for doing it. I mean, you can let loudmouths run around and bully anybody they want if they feel they can do it without consequences. And so the answer to Iran right now, and that man who claims to be the president of that country, is to make it unquestionably clear that if you do have this capability, we are going to take you out. I mean, what's the purpose? If you're not going to be the world power and don't act like a world power, then why be a world power? I mean, we can come back to our country and never be involved in anything. We can be supine in front of all this stuff, or we can actually do what we have to do to protect ourselves.
Question.
Why be a world power? The reason we're world power is in case we need to defend ourselves. That's it. You're a world power, and you want to go out and use that power to beat up on other people. My question is to Dinesh, similar area. Why do you feel that our founders, when they broke free of Great Britain and then a few years later instituted our Constitution, why do you think that was a constitution for the entire world? It was strictly for us and our freedom. Why do you insist that our founders created this Constitution for the entire world?
Okay, that's a question.
Well, I'm not saying that the founders created a constitution for the world. The rights of American citizens apply only to us. I would not extend those rights to aliens or prisoners in Guantanamo. Our civil rights are ours as citizens. I agree with that. What I am saying is that those rights were seen as arising out of universal principles. The founders didn't just believe that the European man or the white man or the fellow who read Locke was entitled to liberty, but that this was something that was, in a sense, a universal fire in all human beings. All human beings, in a sense, aspire to it. Now, the founders didn't give it to anybody. They didn't give it to everybody. In fact, Lincoln even said later, the founders declared the right so that the enforcement could follow when the circumstances permitted. He was talking about slavery. Here's the point I want to make. Our opponents have been talking a lot about the fact that freedom is being destroyed in America. Well, you know what's going to destroy freedom in America? Another 9/11. If there was a second 9/11 and a third, America would have to become like Israel, a police state. The fact is, we have not had an attack since 9/11, and that's allowed a lot of us to rest easy, breathe a sigh of relief, and sort of pretend that we can go back to September 10th. And so we're now in a sort of September 10th lull or mode. What we're forgetting is that it's very difficult to defend this country. A free country is very difficult to defend at every border, every port, every airline. If all of us in this room today shut the doors and decided to create a conspiracy in which over the next 6 months we cause havoc in America, do you realize how much havoc we could cause? And if we were willing to die causing it, this country could barely defend itself against us. So the fact is, take us and multiply our numbers by 1,000, and then take people who are willing to strap bullets and kill themselves, and you get a hint of the kind of threat we face. Let's recognize it.
Well, Ron wants to respond to this. Unfortunately, we have to stop at 6:15, which is about now. So, Ron.
Well, I fear more 9/11s too. But in perspective, you have to realize, and I agree with Dinesh, that yes, more and more of 9/11s, there's a threat to our freedom. But it's not going to be a threat from an invasion of a foreign power. It's going to be more Patriot Acts, more Military Commissions Act, more National ID Acts, more loss of habeas corpus, and that's coming from our government. And that's what we ought to be concerned about. That's where our responsibility are. If we want to spread our goodness, which I believe in, it should be without force. It should be by setting a good example, having a vibrant economy and minding our business where people will want to emulate us. You can't do it with the use of force.
Okay. I'm afraid that's the end of it. Thank you for a great debate. Nobody wimped out.
Of a campaign rally.
the whole concept of what we in the freedom movement talk about, it is truly life and liberty. And of course, the founders of this country talked about life and liberty. They didn't talk about welfare and warfare. They talked about life and liberty.
When John and I met about 5 years ago, we agreed that we really cared about peace, and we really cared about eliminating poverty, and we really cared about the environment. We really cared about creating a world in which people could all be happy, well, thriving, and experience the flow state all the time. And as it turns out, we just both happen to be libertarians who believe that a free world in which people can choose their own paths is the world that will give us sustainable peace, prosperity, happiness, and well-being.
A raging battle between capitalism and socialism over the last 50 years. And that battle has now been won. And even a socialist like Robert Heilbroner wrote in the New Yorker after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the long 50-year battle between capitalism and socialism is over. Capitalism has won.
I've given Muhammad Yunus and the Grameen Foundation a lot of money. I've given some money to the Aga Khan Foundation, people that are involved in microcredit, because I think the way forward for the world is funding entrepreneurs. Increasingly, there are profitable or for-profit microcredit enterprises, and they're going to get the balance of the money that I use in terms of microcredit because profitable businesses are self-sustaining. It's better than giving money away if you seed an enterprise that goes forward.
In the place of all of these transfer programs, every American citizen upon turning age 21 would begin to receive, deposited electronically into a bank account once per month, a sum of money which over the course of the year would total $10,000 in today's purchasing power.
Since its inception as a descriptive science, economics has been mired in controversy over how to apply its data and theory. Market solutions to social problems are generally received skeptically. Businessmen are distrusted, corporations looked at askance. As well, there is a well-known resentment against those who have most benefited from markets. Folk economics leads us to disdain excessive wealth, label usury as a sin, and mistrust the invisible hand of the market. What we do not understand, we often fear, and what we fear, we loathe.
What we find also, too, is that people are paid far lower at the conventionally managed companies. At Walmart, for example, workers receive about $11.50 per hour with no benefits. At high-involvement Costco, they earn about $16 plus benefits plus training. But what we do find in these companies is that at the high-involvement company, the workers tend to be 2 or 3 times more productive.
As we develop, as we grow as human beings, we have a decrease in narcissism and an increase in caring and consciousness. And human beings tend to move from egocentric to ethnocentric to world-centric. Of course, most humans probably are at an ethnocentric, identifying with their tribe or their nation or their religion, but few actually can embrace identifying and caring for all of humanity, and even fewer can go beyond that to begin to care for animals, sentient beings, and all life forms.
They do not understand the dynamics of what happens when people are allowed to use freedom in a dynamic way and pursue their own interests, as is going on in China today with 1.3 billion people. We're living through right now in Asia is a boom and not a prelude to a bust. We are looking at a whole new paradigm, and we're just beginning to understand its impact.
What they wrote in there was a principle about natural rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And one of the first issues of grievance against the king that they put in here in this document, risking their own lives in violation of the king's law, was to say the king has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither.